Let me just see. We are going to start first with the speakers from the United States. And we have the Acting Associate Director for Interpretation, Education, and Volunteers, Mr. Tom Medema, who spent a good chunk of his career as Chief of Interpretation at Yosemite National Park. I believe that we can move to that in a moment, but at the end of everyone's remarks, at the end of questions and answers, we have a few minutes to talk about ideas for future cooperation. This started as a cancellation of an annual seminar that we do between the U.S. National Park Service and Japanese counterparts in the Ministry of Environment, as well as in the academic realm, and particularly with our university colleagues in Japan, since 1995. Because of the pandemic, we decided we can't hold the seminar in person at Great Smoky Mountains this year. We actually have colleagues from Thailand who have a sister park relationship with Great Smoky Mountains. That's Khao Yai National Park. Hello to everybody in Thailand. Hello to everybody from Australia, South Korea, Nigeria, Georgia, if you're on. Welcome everyone, and especially all our colleagues from Japan. Thank you for getting up early in the morning for this call. So I think, Yukako-san, we can turn to the next item in the agenda. Do we have any more remarks from Koji, or do we want to go with our speakers? You're muted.
Wait. Yes, I would like to Koji-san to give us a remark for opening first, and then I will give my mic to Rudy-san again. Can we do this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for participating in this valuable and unique opportunity. My name is Koji Furuse. I am the representative of AIJ. AIJ stands for Association for Interpretation Japan. Also, I teach environmental interpretation in Teikyo University of Science. We, AIJ, have been conducting training seminars for Japanese interpreters for 25 years with generous cooperation from U.S. National Park Service. Especially, I'd like to express my deep appreciation for our coordinator and trainers, Rudy, Maya, Todd, and mentors in the past, John Tyler and Jerry Shimoda, who are their great support and long friendship. We plan, as Rudy-san mentioned, we plan to hold training seminar in Great Smoky Mountain National Park, but it was canceled due to COVID-19. Therefore, we planned this webinar to exchange information to how we correspond our interpretive service to the visitors in national parks during this situation. We invited 7 speakers from the US and Japan. And I hope it will be a fruitful and meaningful session for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Furuse-san, Koji-san. Arigatou gozaimashita. Okay, so please really go ahead for introduction for 4 speakers from the US.
So we are going to start with Tom. Tom, I see you're on, and I hope that you heard my introduction of you. So Tom Medema, Associate Director for Interpretation, Education, and Volunteers of the U.S. National Park Service.
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. And thanks, everybody, for the invitation. And it's great to be here with all of you. I've been fortunate to do a considerable amount of international work in my time with the Park Service, and working with our international colleagues is one of the most rewarding things and important things I think we can do, is to learn from each other and share what we know and improve our global work in protecting places and helping people. So my brief introduction here is about our service-wide response to COVID-19 here in the United States. Of course, like everyone, it was an unnerving situation to shut down parks in phases. And we learned a lot back in March about closing operations and ceasing operations in some places and not in other places. And of course, the politics are different in every country. And here between the federal government and the state government and the local governments, you know, there was inconsistency and confusion, and communication really became the most important asset that we had to our 419 units in the National Park Service. Just ongoing communication, even in the absence of knowledge, communicating gave people comfort to know that we were thinking about certain things, even if we didn't have those answers. And protecting the health and safety of our employees, of course, and our partners was the very first consideration. And as we look to get back into operations here and we start to reopen parks and recover in a phased approach, employee safety is still number one. So that's where we're putting a lot of our energy and resources right now, as fee collectors at the entrance stations and interpretive and education staff begin to engage with the public again, and maintenance staff begin emptying trash and interacting with the public themselves. It's important, obviously, to keep their health and safety first and foremost. So social distancing protocols are in place, putting masks and other personal protective equipment protocols in place are some of the very first priorities that we have. And then within that, and I think Carrie will talk about this a little bit more, but the idea of enforcing those guidelines is the biggest challenge facing us right now. If you watch the news any day in the US, you see conflict. You see conflict between people that are shopping at the grocery store. One person is wearing a mask and the next person is not, and they get angry with each other. We do not want to be in a position of having to enforce. We want visitors to take care of themselves. I don't want to put educators and interpreters in a position where they have to be enforcers. And so we're taking a very measured approach to responding. And that's really what has everybody on edge right now, because we're all concerned. And so we see the potential for conflict to be very high. So how do we manage that? Part of it is not opening facilities early. Even if they're ready, the one way to avoid some of those conflicts is not to bring people indoors. And so trying to keep as many things as possible outdoors where the conflicts are fewer than they are when you bring people indoors. Making those sorts of decisions, but again, they're being made locally. We put a lot of power in the hands of our superintendents and their staff to make those decisions based on what they see on the ground. So we don't just say from Washington, this is the way it's going to be for every park in every circumstance. Every state has different guidance. Every park has a different personality and a different type of visitor. And so we allow those decisions to be made at the local level. So we will attempt to manage social distance based on our guidelines from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. We'll attempt to manage face covering. We'll attempt to manage group sizes and not have the guided interpretive programs that we're used to, not open our theaters where we bring lots of people together, but think of other ways to have those services provided. Campgrounds are another example. So there are many places that are considering opening campgrounds only for people who come in recreational vehicles that have their own bathroom. So they cook their own food, they have their own bathroom, and they go to a pump station. So they can be completely distanced and no infrastructure, no employees to clean the restrooms. We just check them in, they pay their fee, and that's it. So that might be phase one. And then phase two, again, we open further and further up to phase three when we fully reopen. But that phase will be different in each park. So I'm coming up on 5 minutes, and that's just really a broad, some of our top priorities as we start with. But of course, public health and safety and the health and safety of our employees, always number one, and all of our decisions are starting there. And then we will open in phases, operations and programming, keeping that in mind. And so I'm sure we'll get to more details when we come to questions, but I want to turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Our next speaker is Carrie Olson, who works directly for Tom as the Chief of Interpretation for the entire U.S. National Park Service. Carrie?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me and inviting me, Rudy. Nice to see you all. I'm going to talk about the pivot that we made when the pandemic started and the park started to close for interpretation and education. Our interpretation education rangers are very dedicated to creating visitor experiences and providing customer service. And when we closed our parks, we didn't want that to end. So we largely moved online. and have been focusing a great amount of energy in creating digital experiences. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those. One of the top ones is we really encouraged our parks to improve their websites. This hasn't always been a high priority, but during the pandemic, it became a huge priority. And it creates visitor expectations. It's going to be really important as we reopen to set expectations for behaviors of our visitors. But it's also our main communication for visitors, potentially before they ever come. When all of our schools started to close, we really wanted to try to create and curate some experiences for our teachers. And we had a large number of parks that already do distance learning, but this need also sprung up pretty immediately of how do we create experiences for classrooms that were now spread out over many homes. And so that's an area that we're still learning in, and I think it's going to be one of those areas that becomes important over the next couple of years. I think that we're learning skills now for that, and it'll stay very important. We also wanted to reach out to those parents and families that now had kids at home instead of at school. And so we really worked on creating a large number of digital engagement for kids. Some of them online, but we also heard a strong need to not be online, to put the devices away and have some experiences that can be downloaded and then taken out into the yard or be done in their living room. And so I'm going to put a few examples in the chat and you guys can look at those websites. They're open to the public. We created a number of Junior Ranger experiences. Junior Ranger is a predominant brand for the National Park Service. It's something that most people recognize. So we increased our Junior Ranger experiences, and we also created experiences for families that were intergenerational. And then finally, social media was where we promoted most of those and then drove them back to our websites. So social media has been an area where a lot of our interpreters have been exploring, creating videos. And then finally is virtual volunteering. We typically have thousands of volunteers in our parks every day. And so now what do we do with people who want to volunteer their time? And so our last area is that we've been turning our volunteerism to be virtual. And how can citizens help us with science? And so through citizen science, or through helping go through pictures, or even helping with our websites. We've been bringing some of our volunteers online as well. This has also brought challenges. We are really learning how to be engaging digitally. Most of us have skills to do this face-to-face or in person, but when in a new medium and being digital and people can turn off, turn on at any moment, how do you really capture that energy and stay true to our interpretive skills while being digital as well? We also have really struggled with being fully accessible. We have accessibility laws. It's a civil rights law here in the US. And we have to have, all of our videos need to be captioned and have audio description, so to meet the needs of the deaf and the blind communities. And anything that is like a PDF needs to be remediated and be compliant for e-readers. That has been a big skill set that we had to learn very, very fast as we increased our digital engagement. We also needed to, I think as Tom mentioned, increase our communication. So that's training, it's setting new expectations. So we started a newsletter. We've started more calls with all of our parks. And we've really increased our collaboration across our directorates and making sure the communication internally was strong as we provided these resources across. So I realized I didn't set my timer, but good, okay. Oh, say more about virtual volunteers. Yeah, it's an area where we still need to grow a bit. Many of our volunteers do more like trail work or plant restoration. And so thinking about virtual volunteering, it does need to be a little bit different. So one of the projects is we've had some wildlife cameras and we collect thousands and thousands of pictures of wildlife. And they need to be sorted through and analyzed and identified. And so that's one, that's a volunteer task that people can do from their home. We've had some volunteers also help us with our web pages, volunteers that we've had strong relationships with and can keep them internally. So I think the last thing I was saying, part of our communication has also been about how do we create these visitor experiences as we reopen, but need to maintain social distancing, move from digital into the in-person, and that has, we want to use a lot of creativity in doing that. So we've talked about Tom's favorite idea is dial a ranger. So have rangers on the phone and visitors can call in and ask questions, or moving our operations outside. And another one is how do we prepare our staff for conflicts? Everyone's emotions are very high. Visitors' emotions are much higher. How do we make sure we're able to manage some of those conflicts? So we're providing de-escalation guidance, and how do we train our rangers to help calm everybody and remove the conflict through customer service and through non-law enforcement practices. And that was what I had, so I'll pass that on to, I think, to Donnie.
Thanks, Carrie. Donnie? And for everyone, Donnie Ledbetter is the manager of the NPS National Tourism Program.
Thank you, Rudy. Hello, everybody. It's very nice to be with so many colleagues from around the world today. So thank you for this privilege of being with you. I apologize. I don't have a web camera right now. So I know you are missing seeing my face, and I apologize for that, but I will have to go on without that. I'd like to share a couple of observations and bullet points and some information about tourism to the national parks in the coronavirus pandemic. And so let me start by observing that one of the questions our parks have, and all of our communities and all of the states have, and I imagine many countries have too, is what is tourism going to look like for the rest of this year and next year as communities and states and countries are able to slowly ease travel restrictions. What is the demand for travel going to look like? Will people be eager to travel again? And if so, what kind of travel activities will they want to participate in? And for the National Park Service, we want to know, as best as we can, what to expect in terms of demand, visitation demand, people's interest in visiting parks. Now, even in regular times, it's very challenging to forecast demand. It's very difficult to forecast visitation demand to the national parks. And even in regular times, we don't have a surefire formula for that. But what we can do is look at some of the statistics from the travel and tourism sector in general, and some of the research in general, and try to analyze that and think about the implications for our national parks. And that's something I've been doing over the last few weeks, is looking at some of that data and research and thinking about what it will mean for us. So a couple of observations to share with you. Number one, in the United States, as in many countries, as you know, tourism has virtually stopped. Tourism has declined in the United States somewhere around 90% from last year. The volume of tourism has just basically stopped. And for the rest of the year, for the remainder of the year, some of the forecasts estimate that tourism in the United States will fall about 50% for the entire year. So overall, the entire year, about a 50% decline. Also, international tourism to the United States, very important, 80 million tourists last year to the United States, an estimate decline of up to 70% this year. So huge declines in tourism, and that will have implications for visitation and tourism to the national parks. Many, not all, but many of our park visitors are tourists. And so naturally, there's a big decline in that volume. However, the second main point I want to share, the research that we're seeing, there are different surveys and research being done asking the public, the American public and the traveling public, about their travel interests, their perceptions, their preferences going forward. What will you do when you can travel again? What kind of activities will you feel safe? What sort of controls and regulations will you be looking for, and what kind of messaging will you be looking for? So a couple of the key findings that I want to share that have been important for us to consider. There have been many surveys showing that when people are asked about different travel activities, things like outdoor recreation, outdoor activities, and taking a road trip are perceived as the safest travel activities. Not very surprising, but it's good to see it in the data, in the survey responses. People are looking to outdoor activities and road trips, things they can control a lot of their environment, as some of the first activities they'll be interested in, much more than attending an indoor event or a museum, or attending a live event like a concert or a show of some sort, certainly attending a movie inside. And then even flying on an airplane domestically, traveling outside the United States, taking a cruise, traveling on trains. These are not perceived as safe right now, and have stayed that way for many weeks now. So even though travel volume will be lower, obviously we've got to think about where the demand is going to go, and there's going to be some big implications for the national parks about that the demand will be for outdoor activities, places where we can socially distance. The demand will be for road trips. So we may have park visitors that are local or that are regional from within a driving distance, much more than we'll have, say, international visitors or visitors from across the country. We'll see how that plays out. I think that the implication is that this demand is going to be channeled to the national parks, that many other travel activities may not feel safe or be available. So even though the overall volume of all travel is lower, it's going to be funneled to the national parks, and this will be a challenge. So the final point I want to make, and Tom mentioned this already, for us, because of those factors, the local coordination is critical. In the United States, there are many local and state tourism-related and recreation-related authorities and offices, and the coordination of messaging and information with those organizations will be absolutely critical to ensure people have accurate information and that adequate tourism services are available. People need to know, will I have somewhere to stay, or is this going to be a one-day road trip? People need to know, will there be food and other services available for me before they make their travel choice? I also want to mention two last things. One, commercial tourism, commercial tour activities, such as bus tours, rafting trips, guided hiking. Those are all very important and very popular in many of the parks. They will be extremely limited this year due to the practical challenges of enforcing social distancing. Now, there is no one decision about that. There will be many different decisions about those activities evaluated by parks in collaboration with their commercial operators. There may be instances where a commercial activity, a guided activity, even a bus tour, conceivably, could be designed to allow for social distancing, but there are probably many that will not. And so this is a very challenging scenario for the companies in the business sector and the private sector. Some of our lodges in the national parks have already decided they will not open this year, not just because of the challenges of social distancing, but because of the challenges of staffing and where they would have their concession, their hotel employees, where they live, and providing services to them. So I just want to close by saying that lower levels of visitation for the National Park Service, we still have our operating budget. You know, we have a budget from the US government that will keep us going. And this is not a great situation for us, of course, but we'll keep going and get through it. This is a devastating situation for the communities our parks are a part of, for the private sector, for many of the travel, tourism, and hospitality operators who rely and support national parks. Strong communities are really important for supporting national parks. So we recognize the challenge for them and are finding ways to be partners with them as we work through this as well. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and I'll be here the rest of the call. Look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnie. Our next speaker from the National Park Service is Hanako Wakatsuki Chong. She is Chief of Interpretation and Education at Minidoka National Historic Site. I will be posting a link for some of the programs that Hanako will be talking about.
Hi, everyone. I hope you all could hear me. I'm having some internet issues, so I might turn off my video if it does get a little bit crusty out there. I just actually want to start off. I just found out that our park film, Minidoka, an American Concentration Camp, just won first place in a film festival. That just came in a few minutes ago. But at Minidoka National Historic Site, we interpret the Japanese American incarceration experience during World War II of the Nikkei, and who were over here in the United States as they were imprisoned due to racism, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. And due to COVID-19, we usually have an annual pilgrimage where descendants, survivors, and others come together and kind of learn about the story of this site. We're no longer able to host this. And a lot of the other pilgrimages at the other sites have been canceled as well. So the community has requested and sought guidance in trying to do a virtual pilgrimage, and they reached out to the National Park Service for that. And so we are actually co-hosting a virtual pilgrimage this summer that's gonna be about 9 weeks long. And it's gonna be co-hosted on our partner's website, which is a Japanese American Memorial Pilgrimages. And it's basically a crowdsourcing program that we're doing, where right now we have about 40 confirmed organizations, everywhere from the Smithsonian, which is gonna be participating, to like the National JACL, so that's the Japanese American Citizens League, to a lot of other smaller organizations. And so throughout these 9 weeks, we have thematic weeks where, you know, we're starting from everything from immigration to anti-Asian sentiment, to forced removal, to the incarceration experience, the question of loyalty and what it means to be an American citizen. And then we also wanted to focus on the mass incarceration of Nikkei, Japanese nationals across the world during this time, and focus on the Japanese Canadian incarceration, the Japanese Latino incarceration down in South America, and also the Japanese Australian incarceration as well. And it would be great also to see if there's possibility to work with some of the folks in Japan to talk about emigration from Japan to the United States. So basically within this program, it's going to be incredible. We're going to have 65 days of programming, everything from education sessions to elder panels, where we'll have survivors tell about their experiences, to doing a film festival, providing opportunities for artists to talk about things as well, and also focusing on other traditional Japanese things like bonsai and ikebana as well, and also focusing on the arts, as we have some artists who have offered to provide concerts for us. So we are working together as a community to provide a platform for all the organizations that are dealing with the preservation of Japanese American incarceration history in the United States, Canada, Latin America, and in Australia, to be able to tell about their efforts and what they're doing on this topic. That's basically that in a nutshell, and we would love to see if anyone else would like to participate in this program.
Thank you, Hanako-san. So now we are actually just a few minutes ahead of where we wanted to be. So that's great. We have plenty of time for questions and answers. So we are opening that up now. So please, if you do have questions, particularly for Tom, for Carrie, for Donnie, for Hanako, you can write them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll try to get through all 3 screens to see who is eager to ask a question.
Let me translate into Japanese also. これから今4人のプレゼンターの方の発表があったんですけれども、この4人の皆さんに質問があれば日本語でも大丈夫ですので、チャットの方に書き込んでいただければと思います。Our staff, Nishimura-san, will pick some questions if you have. And
I'd like to actually start with a question for Todd Hisaichi. He's an interpretation ranger at Muir Woods National Monument in California. Todd mentioned that this is a month that celebrates a particular heritage, which is rather relevant for our meeting today. Todd, can you tell us how you are interpreting that, what social media means, what kind of programs you're doing for this month?
Could you mention some Portugal?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yes. Okay. All right. So maybe Hanako can help me with this. Right now, our park is closed, so we cannot offer any in-person interpretation. So we are actually kind of building our capacity to interpret these difficult issues. So among us, interpreters, particularly Asian Americans, are getting together, and then we are discussing this, being what it means to be Asian Americans or Pacific Islanders, and then by having a better understanding, we are trying to share with the larger populations. And so next week, we are having this panel discussion, and then we talk among ourselves, and then we are inviting our colleagues of all backgrounds. Then we are extending our thoughts, and then so that my colleagues can extend to the larger populations. So I'm curious. I also had a question. How at your side, Hanako, or maybe I can address this direction. Questions to our leaders, and then our senior interpreters, and then how are you folks honoring Japanese Americans, and then also Asian Americans, and then Pacific Islanders at your site or as a park service, or maybe some kind of I don't know, visions to share, particularly in this during this the pandemic.
Yeah, well, I guess with our side, it's unique that we do focus on the Japanese American incarceration history. So this month is definitely key for us to kind of get the word out on this. So we were actually tapped by WASA, the Washington office, to provide a getaway article that they've been promoting to say, hey, you know, there's this park that focuses on API heritage, and you could, you know, hopefully go visit it one day. But our staff is actually relatively small, so we don't really have a lot of capacity to do a lot of things right now, especially since we're tied up in the virtual pilgrimage programming, because I only have basically 2.3 employees. So it's myself, I have one lead interpreter, and a third of an education specialist. And then out of us 2.3 employees, I have 2 other interns that help us out. But you know, a lot of that is research work and help in other capacities. So we haven't done a lot to specifically promote for the AAPI Heritage Month within the community or online as of right now, because our staff is so small and our budget is also on the smaller end. But we do the best we can.
Possibly we can collaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. I could, yeah.
Yukako-san, Tad-san, would you like to translate that for the Japanese participants?
One participant wants to know from China, could you mention some virtual volunteer activities? Maybe it's for Kerry-san.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I typed a number of them in there just to get some in writing. So I added some there, which you can see in the chat. Go ahead, Carrie.
Oh, yes.
Here,
I was
yeah.
Yeah,
just
Kerry-san.
going to say that it's you know, answering emails, it's monitoring the webcams, or at least analyzing photographs that were created through webcams, monitoring social media. So one example is during National Park Week, which was in April, we had some of our volunteers monitoring the hashtag. So hashtag National Park Week and hashtag National Volunteer Week. They were the same. And then collecting stories from volunteers and from staff around volunteerism and collecting those. But we had a volunteer doing that monitoring and research. Some administrative work, and then another great example is we have a volunteer program called Community Volunteer Ambassadors, and it is 50 youth that are hired for year-long fellowships to work in volunteerism, and that crux between volunteerism and community engagement. When we all closed, those fellows were just starting their new fellowship, and so we had many of them turn to the digital world and help with websites, help with social media, turn that volunteers turn that volunteerism to the digital world.
ちょっと通訳しますね。今バーチャルボランティア、let me translate in Japanese a little bit for you. 今ケリーさんからですね、バーチャルボランティアについてどのような具体的なことをされているのかという質問に対して、ボランティアの方にウェブキャムですね、各公演のライブビデオをチェックしてもらったりですね、それから SNS でハッシュタグをこう拾ってもらって、それをどんな情報が出てるかとか、どんな情報を発信されてるかとか、そんなものを見てもらったり、それから4月にですね、ナショナルパークウィークという習慣があったそうなんですが、そこでそれにもモニタリングしてもらったりとか、それからいろんなストーリーを集めてもらったり、そんな数がたくさんいる、仕事に対してボランティアの方にお願いしていたりしているそうです。あともう一つ、コミュニケーションボランティアアンバサダーだったかな。若い人たちにボランティアについて学んでもらったり、それからコミュニティとのエンゲージメント、 地域とつながるということを勉強してもらったりという1年間、そういう研修があって、それを始めたばかりなんですが、それをですね、ウェブで、オンラインでやったりもしているそうです。
はい。かおりさん wants to know、かおりさんは、同じ質問でよろしかったですね、これね。How do volunteers contribute social media? Posting photos taken in national parks.
そうですね。
Maybe same question. Yeah, thanks. Kerry さん、I have one question. Do you have a training program for using social media for park rangers?
Oh, we have guidance, and we have some pages that help teach social media, and especially interpretation and social media. So how do you intentionally build connections through social media? But it's all virtual. It's all online. We do some in-person training, but now it's all been moved to our website. So we have guidance and some training and examples there.
Yeah, thank you very much. I could enjoy many programs in Yosemite Park Rangers for live chat with kids. It's so fun. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Lawrence Sperling さん、he gives us from many suggestions for volunteers mapping was including youth.
Nishimura-san. So Larry Sperling is with the Department of Interior's International Affairs Office. He's been an officer at the Department of State. And one of the things he has said here is the shift to these virtual online activities means we could create more opportunities for expanding citizen science engagement to support protected area management. And I don't know if Larry has a question. Let's see. Any thoughts on how to engage citizens, including youth, in voluntary mapping or similar activities? Normally, we'd like to have somebody from like Great Smoky Mountains answer this, because that falls into the realm of a lot of the programs they're doing with all taxa biodiversity and inventory, ATBI. We have a couple other rangers here, Stephanie Pooler from Richmond, Paula Ogden-Muse from Fort Sumter. While these are American Civil War battlefield sites, we do bioblitzes at almost any park. That almost all of our national military battlefield parks have natural elements to them. So maybe Stephanie or Paula, you could speak to that.
There are two comments from Japan that they are very impressed by the system of volunteer programs in the NPS. So two of them, like the Toyao and Furuse, said as a training program for online too. That's very impressive.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Please type. Type. 日本側の方でどうぞご質問がありましたら、日本でも大丈夫です。どうぞ。
Todd, if you can translate, yeah, please go ahead and translate.
奥田さんから入ってますね。日本のビジターセンターでってやつですか。
はい。教材の配布ですね。オンラインを通じてビジターセンターでやってますけれども、日本では、アメリカでも教材配布、在宅者へのノンパーソナルインタープリテーションをしてますか？
Let's see. Kerry mentioned the Junior Ranger program, correct? So typically, most parks, I think we provide the printed material at the visitor center. But you can print ahead of time and then, or you can use your iPad or any digital media. Then you can start working on it ahead of time, or you can continue working on the Junior Ranger program after you leave the park.
Can you download Junior Ranger? What do you say, the
Material.
pamphlet or brochure to join the Junior Ranger program?
So we have many books. We have about 12 Junior Ranger books that have a specific theme that are national, and those are on our website. I'll put the link in the chat again.
ジュニアレンジャープログラム、日本人の皆さん、ジュニアレンジャープログラムという国立公園局のプログラムがあって、それが、ナショナルレベル、国レベルで12冊の、冊子がある、本というか、があるそうです。それはウェブ上で、検索すればダウンロードができます。
Those books can be printed and downloaded, and then almost every individual park site also has a Junior Ranger book. Some of those are available online, but not all of them. Some of them you have to go to a park to get, but some of them are online, and you can download them. And then also we've, since the pandemic started, we've been creating online activities. So they're individual activities, and they can either be done online, or they're a page, like a coloring page, or an activity that can be taken off, but those are more individual activities, but they're smaller for a shorter time span.
今おっしゃってたのはですね、国レベルで12冊の本がダウンロードできます。それから各公園でもジュニアレンジャープログラム、本のあるところと、ダウンロードできる、オンラインでできるところとできないところありますけれども、作っているそうです。で、特にこのパンデミックの始まってからオンラインのそういった教材というのを充実させるようにしているそうです。その中では個人的な活動として塗り絵があったり、少しちょっとした短いアクティビティが入っているということです。
Thank you very much. And we have two questions from Japan. One is from Mr. Okuda-san. School relations, maybe how do you keep the relationship with between school and NPS or parks? How do you keep? Kelly-san.
Most of those relationships are local. So parks work with their local school districts and build relationships that are particular to that park site. So there are some exceptions to that. There are some parks that broadcast and do distance learning across the nation, but most of our school programs are local. So when we started to close our schools and close our parks, they already had that relationship there. They often already had field trips that had to cancel, and so they converted those some of them converted those experiences to distance learning.
Thank you. One more question for Donnie. Question to Donald. How do you estimate the number of visitors this year? Is there staff within NPS to do such analysis? For Donnie-san.
Yes, sure. Hello. I will share the information I know, and if anyone from the Park Service knows differently, please say so. Usually, yes, we do count visitation, and we use car counters and other technology and formulas to do so. However, right now, my understanding is that there is a pause on the counting of visitation because of staff shortages and, of course, park closures. And so I don't know what the plan is for how to do that going forward. I think there will need to be some serious thought and analysis about how to fill in prior data, if that's even possible, or how to fill in using estimates, if that's even possible. I think there's a lot of uncertainty that will be there around this year's visitation numbers. in general. So that's the latest information that I know about that. Good question.
Thank you. So I checked the chat.
Hanako-san, would you like to add some comments or answering questions?
Well, the only one thing, Rudy just sent a link. That was our getaway article that we produced for our site for the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So that's something that you guys could take a look at. And the other thing that I kind of messed up with trying to get into talk is that with the virtual volunteer aspects, like I'm a historic site, so we don't have a heavy natural science aspect, but with our virtual volunteers, we do a lot of research, whether histories or if they're
そう、花子さんの講演では自然系というよりは歴史の講演なので、いろいろなリサーチですね、調査にボランティアの方に関わっていただけているというお話が、ありました。あと一つ、サイトを紹介しているので、後で皆さんこのサイトを見てくださいというのもありました。
林さんから出ましたね。
はい。
Do you offer programs for children and adults to investigate or report on something in nature that is close to them without having to go to national parks? これはどなたに聞くのがいいのかな?
Who can answer this question?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, I think that Carrie and I think that we don't really have, that I know of, programs specifically geared towards that. We have opportunities. Mostly through social media. So there are times when we'll pose a question to an audience and we may put out, maybe there's a challenge that's issued, for children. Go into your backyard and find a worm, find a bird that's this color, so there might be that kind of, but it's not really, I wouldn't say it's a program. It happens periodically in this park and in that park, over the course of time. So I think that's probably, Carrie, unless you have anything to add, that's how I've seen it done.
I was going to mention, Paula mentioned this in the chat, but we do use a couple of apps. One's called iNaturalist, and the other one is called eBird. And those aren't specifically National Park Service; they're national, but we use them for programming and for citizen science, and you can specify different parks with both of those apps. So that's one way that some parks use do programming to allow people to identify species at home.
はい、今、Thank you very much. iNaturalist と eBird というアプリを紹介してくださいました。今出てますね。
はい。This is the final question for speakers from Park Ranger in Japan, Mrs. Miyamori-san. Do you have any preparations for the reopen the interpretive program in National Park?
Yeah, we have guidance that we're developing for parks. And again, it's going to be local, depending on what people want to do. So one of the things that in phase one is the most restrictive phase, that the first, and when parks open. So for example, there are parks that are considering that you can safely do a program as long as you maintain social distance with a family unit. So if a family of 5, 2 parents and 3 children come, you can do potentially a private tour, one family at a time. There are parks that have talked about mobile tours where you can have each family and they stay in their car. And the interpreter is on an open conference line on a cell phone, and you can guide through a battlefield or some other terrain where you have cell service. You can guide a caravan of vehicles. Everybody stays in their vehicles, but you have a live experience with the ranger in the park. So it's site by site, case by case, and it will be very limited in the first phase. Mostly it'll be information and orientation about safety, about navigating through the park, how to find your way, how to protect themselves and the park. The interpretation will be pretty limited in phase 1, but still available if you can do it within those social parameters.
Thank you very much. 車の中で家族ごと車の中に留まってその状態でなんですかねセルフォンを使ってガイドサービスを行うというようなことでしたね。はい。ではゆかこさん、it's time to open Japanese speakers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me Stephanie from Richmond National.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Can you say something? Yeah. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, I work a lot with schools. I've been seeing a lot of the questions about the schools on the chat, and I work closely with area teachers, as Carrie mentioned, but I also do long distance learning across the United States, including Alaska and California. I'm located in Virginia on the East Coast. But yes, so I do a lot of keeping close with the teachers to find out what they need. And then our staff is building digital content to send out to teachers. As the schools may be physically closed, our students are still expected to complete assignments at home. So we are trying to help the parents and help the teachers get content out. And that's not just for the Civil War, it's also for one of our other sites, Maggie L. Walker National Historic Site. As the first African-American woman to open her own bank here in the United States. So we are slowly building content. As Carrie said, it's new to us, but it's a challenge that we have taken head on and sharing it as far as we can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So I think it's time to go on to next three speakers from Japan. So the first speaker is Ms. Nakajima from Ministry of the Environment. And Ms. Nakajima, can you start first?
Okay, thank you very much, Masuda-san, and thank you all for inviting us to this very useful meeting today. And so today I would like to speak as a Director of Visitor Youth Promotion Office, National Park Division of the Ministry of the Environment. And I have been working for nature conservation issues in the ministry for over 20 years, almost 25 years. So let me start by some introduction and Japanese national parks and management system, since most of you are not familiar with our parks. In Japan, 34 national parks have been designated nationwide by the Minister of the Environment. And there is a zoning system under the Natural Parks Law. And most of the areas are owned by other sectors other than our ministry. Which includes the forestry agency, local governments, private sectors, and local residents. So our park rangers assigned to national park management offices are working with local governments and other stakeholders to maintain park facilities or promote park management. And there are lots of interpretation activities to visitors in national parks are running by other stakeholders, nature guides and other specialists and also private sectors. So, and based on recent tourism policy, our ministry have been working for inviting foreign visitors to national parks in Japan as a priority policy since 2016 for 4 years in cooperation with the Japan National Tourism Organization and Tourism Agency. And we have set a target to double the number of foreign visitors by 2020 this year. So, then I would like, the corona impact, the COVID-19 outbreak now caused us very serious impacts in Japan and our national parks. So currently many shops, hotels, lodges, and also our park facilities like visitor centers managed by our regional offices having also closed. So since early February, we trying to disseminate accurate information to domestic and overseas on the current situation of national parks via official website and other SNS, Facebook and Twitters and other media. And also as a support for the local economy, the first supplementary budget was approved by the parliament on the end of April. And the Ministry of the Environment recently started to call for grant proposal by local stakeholders and private sectors in national parks to support preparation and implementation of eco tours and other events in national parks. Also, we have some discussion with other ministries, such as the tourism agency, for further collaboration with their measures and their project to support local economic activities. So now the emergency declaration was lifted last week in 39 prefectures among 47 in Japan. So economic activities are gradually resumed, and the industrial organization in the many areas started to develop or announced some guidelines for resumption of their businesses. And also our ministry started to reopen the park facilities, including visitor centers, very gradually in the region. But the government requests the self-restraint for movement beyond the border of prefectures, so people still cannot travel freely, of course. So I understand that continued support to the related local committees and stakeholders in national parks will be needed in the medium or long term. So we were willing to strengthen our efforts to cooperate with the related stakeholders and organizations and to consider how we can take some necessary measures in a national park management, of course, including interpretation activities during COVID-19. So information sharing and cooperation with related stakeholders will be essential from such perspective. So then I'd like to stop my talk for now and invite next speaker, Tsujita-san, for detailed explanation, information on the current situation in Daisen-Oki National Park. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nakajima-san. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Ms. Tsujita, Kaori Tsujita, and she's from Daisen-Oki National Park Office. So Tsujita-san, please go ahead and start.
Hear me? 聞こえてますか? Okay, now I start. Hello everyone, my name is Kaori. working for the Ministry of the Environment, and my job is the management of the Daisen-Oki National Park. If you like, please see the video of Daisen-Oki National Park. I put the link on the chat. Please see it if you like. The feature of the national park is various landscapes such as mountains, grassland, coastal areas, and isolated islands, and containing cultural assets and traditional customs and rituals of local people. And our national park is located in Western Japan. With regard to the situation of COVID-19 in this area, number of infected persons is relatively small, about 50 people in total of 3 prefectures located in the national park. And the response by local government is requesting people to refrain from going to and coming from the other prefectures. In addition to that, as for island, people are requested not to visit the island from the mainland of Japan because of lack of medical facilities, and such request is not legally binding. So people who go against such request are not subject to fines or other penalties. However, majority of people follow such requests. With regard to measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19, there's no gate to control visitors to the park in Japan. So we cannot close national parks entirely. As such, coordination with local governments and tourist associations and other related people is essential. It is possible to almost close national park by closing accommodations, tour desks, parking lots, and restrooms, and so on. We closed almost facilities until last Saturday, following the emergency declaration of the government. And now we are at the stage of reopening facilities only for local people living within prefecture. And we open facilities, we take basic countermeasures against infection. For example, sterilization, ventilation, and calling for people to keep 2 meters away from others. And in the meantime, we try to keep or grow people's interest in our park through SNS, Facebook page, while taking care not to encourage people to come beyond prefectural border boundaries. And the current trend of visitors to the park is as follows. Majorities are local people just stopping by just for a short time during driving or motorcycling. And we don't have, although we don't have any statistical data, local people feel number of visitors maybe 10% or so of usual year this time. We're concerned about people working in the national park, for example, local tour operators, accommodations, and restaurants within the park are facing big economic damages. So to support them, we are encouraging and advising them to take advantage of grant programs of the government for the preparation to invite visitors after the end of COVID-19. And at last, I believe the challenge is that it is hard to foresee when the threat is gone. It could be long term. And the other challenge is how to secure health and safety of visitors and staffs, as virus is invisible and incubation period is relatively long. However, I believe there may be bright side also. People are trying now change their lifestyle to decrease the risk of infection by social distancing, and could have more attention to outdoors, including national parks. And I feel demands for tourism have been growing. So it would be good opportunity to promote national parks and raise awareness of the importance of nature and nature conservation when the threat is almost gone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tsujita-san. Nakajima-san and Tsujita-san, two speakers are from the governmental agency, Ministry of the Environment, and their perspectives are from government, governmental sectors. But the next person, Mr. Kawashima, he's gonna talk about the interpretation during this COVID-19 and also the situation about Japanese private sectors like NGOs and nature schools. So Kawashima-san, please go ahead and start.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Kawashima. I will prepare the PowerPoint. I will share. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint? Okay, okay. Let's start. In 1980, I studied field experience-based environmental education at Kiyosato Educational Experiment Project, commonly known as KEEP, at the foot of Yatsugatake Mountains, about 3 hours from Tokyo by train. One of today's moderators, Yukako, was used to my colleague at KEEP. Also, I have been organizing several nationwide networks of nature experience and environmental education fields in Japan since in 1980s. And now I have been working as a president for Japan Environmental Education Forum, one of these network organizations, for 7 years. Unlike the US, the concept and the expertise of interpretation in Japan have been developed and brushed by private organizations in advance, such as nature schools and NGOs in various regions. This process has been influenced vastly by pioneers from the United States. For example, Joseph Cornell has come to Japan many times since the 1980s to spread the idea of his famous nature awareness book, Sharing Nature with Children, and Rachel Carson, The Sense of Wonder, became a famous book among Japanese interpreters. Talk-centered programs that improve viewing natural scenery and listening interpreters talk are still common in Japan, but it has been slowly changing, like more experiential with 5 senses and participatory style for the participants. For these changes in interpretation, facilitation skill is required for the interpreters. Todo Hisaichi of NPS participated in the SDGs workshop for business people that I conducted in Yokohama last year. In this workshop, I introduced facilitation skills that were developed in Japan. After the participation, Todd said that he would like to share these skills between Japan and the US in the future. I would love to hear his comment later if we have time. Today, nearly 1,000 nature schools exist in Japan, and most of them are established in the 1980s as bases of nature experience. In the 2000s, they began to play more of roles as bases for community building. And recently years, they are expected to take other roles bases for ESD and SDGs. Most of the nature schools are small scale and operated by the several staff members. And there are only a few nature schools with more than 20 staffing. For these small nature schools, the impact of COVID-19 is profound. While most of the nature schools use outdoor fields as classrooms and by no means enclosed environment, it would be desperate to host programs in this summer that involve traveling and overnight staying. Against this backdrop, some nature schools have been posting experiences that can be done in familiar natural environment for the audience by distributing videos on YouTube. 8 members of organizations from the network cooperated to conduct a survey on the impact of COVID-19, and now are working with the Ministry of the Environment and other organizations to create guidelines for nature experience activities after the convergence of the COVID-19. We hope to make effective use of these online opportunities and continue our cooperation as Earth interpreters while involving other countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kawashima-san, with your presentation with a lot of pictures. Thank you. Okay, so 3 speakers, they finished their presentations, and please write your questions or comments on chat function, using chat function.
So I will pick up the questions and comments and the chat function.
Right. Okay. Tom-san, yeah. We got one question from Tom.
Are you considering
metered entry? Limited how many people?
How many people can be? 同時に、人数とかあれですか、距離とかですか？公園
に入る人数の制限とかはされてるんです でしょうか。
どんな感じでしょうかということで、これは中
中島さん
かな、うん。
はい。喋っていただいて大丈夫です。解除求める。失礼しました。はい。
In Japanese, okay?
はい。Yes, Japanese OK です。
日本語でどうぞ。
じゃあちょっと簡単に日本語で。基本的にその国立公園という、その様々な、土地所有になっているので、土地に立ち入ることの制限というのは基本的には土地所有者の、の制限っていうのが基本的な形になっていてですね、公園、その他に公園利用のための、土地の立ち入り制限というのは、利用調整地区という制度が、一応国立自然公園法の下にもあるんですけれども、知床とですね、大台ヶ原と2カ所しか指定されていないので、極めてその環境省の持つ自然公園法の下でのレストリクションというのは非常に限られています。
知床と大台ヶ原っておっしゃいましたでしょうか。
そうですね。はい。その他はその土地の所有者とかですね、によっていろいろな制限というのはもちろんありますけれども。
はい。The Japanese national parks are very different from the parks in the United States, and they don't have any gates, entrance gates or anything, and also the land of the parks are not for the government. It's a private lands. 県の所有ですね。like different owners of the parks. So there's no restriction to enter or restriction of how many visitors to enter the park. There's no restrictions. But only Shiretoko National Park and Daigahara National Park has rules of entering how many people can come. But those are two national parks that have limitations.
To designated areas within the national park under the national parks law to conserve nature and to limit the number of the visitors per day. But so it's fundamentally freely we can travel to national park.
Is that answer for Tom? Is it answer for you, Tom?
Yeah, that's helpful. It's just one of the mitigations we're considering is queuing vehicles outside of the park and only letting, a certain number in to help maintain social distance. And but it's controversial, so we'll have to just looking for other parks that might be doing that.
はい、ありがとうございます。from Rudy さん、question for 香織さん。香織さんに質問です。Do visitors your park wear mask? マスクはどれぐらいのビジターがマスクしてるでしょうか？パーセンテージは教えてください。
I already answered on chat, and the answer is most people wear masks, but some people wear off their masks to enjoy fresh air in the field while keeping social distance. Thank you.
はい、ありがとうございます。花子さんから、香織さん mentions that there is a discouragement of people crossing into different provinces to visit parks. Is that a recommendation or it's a policy to restrict movement in Japan? これは
県を越えてのその交流っていうのは今制限されているのはその、日本のその法律というかポリシーでしょうか。ですかね。
自粛ですよね。
Yes.
Government just requested people as a self-restraint.
There is no punishment or anything, but just people try not to go across the province or prefectures in Japan. Yeah, you're right.
From Korean National Park Service, answer to Rudy for your information. Korean National Park Service also recommends visitors to wear masks, but it's not obligated to wear them. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you from Korea. So Kajitani-san in Yosemite National Park, his experience in Japan, when he was in Japan, he has experience to receive interpretation service from families or teachers, school teachers, not park rangers. And from Victoria, from Dev Popo-san, Parks Victoria, Australia. Konnichiwa. Do you have,
Konnichiwa.
Do you have a junior ranger program in Japan? If so, how are you adapting to physical distancing? ありがとう。はい。これも中島さんかな。子供レンジャーのプログラムありますか？
Yes, we have official junior ranger program. It's very small scale project running by the Ministry of the Environment. Regional office conducted several junior ranger program, inviting children to mainly in the summer, but very limited. Since our park ranger is very busy to have some other management and facility maintenance and to have some paperwork mainly in the office. And so actually this year, after outbreak of COVID-19, we have no event, no tours, no running by the regional office. So we are still thinking how we can restart such activities in a field level. Thank you.
Thank you. From one comment from Korean National Park Service, as well as asking visitors to wearing them, also measure visitors' body temperature at the entrance of each national park. 公園の入り口で体温を測っているということですね。韓国のナショナルパークです。はい。ルディさん、from ルディさん、thank you, Korean NPS colleagues for your answer about recommending mask wearing in Korean national parks. Yeah, thank you. From Kajitani-san in Yosemite National Park, he's originally from Yokohama, and he enjoying Hakone Oze and the Japanese Alps. He enjoying climbing and hiking so much. And from Rudy-san, question for Thai national parks, Thailand. What about social distancing and mask recommendation for your parks? For Thailand, please turn on your mic and please answer this question from Thailand.
For Thailand, we still keep social distancing, and also in every park right now we are all closed, but we concerned about the safety of the staff because they stay outside the park. So everyone who entering the park, we make a record and measuring the temperature, and everyone access the park, even the staff have to wear a mask.
Thank you very much. So we have maybe 5 or 6 minutes. Please tell us about other countries.
Mm-hmm.
How do you treat?
Yes, you can off the mute if you want to, from other countries, audience.
I've got a question for Mohammed, who is from Nigeria. And the same kind of question as for South Korea and Thailand. And we'll turn to our colleagues in Australia as well. What is it like for you at national parks in Nigeria? Social distancing, mass, temperature measuring. Please share with us your experience.
Yeah.
Either Mohammed or Babajida.
Please turn on your mic.
Hello there, everybody. This is Babajide in Nigeria. Can you hear me? Okay. Here in Nigeria, the different states are the ones enforcing the laws. There's a federal law which is restricted to maybe traveling and wearing of masks for now, but it's for the states where the parks are to enforce them. And from what we're having now, it's coming to everybody must wear a mask if you are going out of their house. So the state is now part of what we call private parks, which has to be covered in public. So, and there's a lot of curfew and movement restrictions, which we have situations where if you are in a state, you can't travel to another state until such a curfew or movement restriction is lifted. Thank you very much.
Rudy, could you hear the comment? It was very soft. Bahajidi?
Mohammed. Yes, it was hard to hear you, Mohammed, but I heard you say something about masks as well as curfew, that there are curfews in place. And if you could maybe speak up a little louder just to recap that.
This is Babajide again. There are curfews in place, and the enforcement is based on each state government. In some of the states, there is complete lockdown. For example, Plateau State, where I am, nobody's allowed to move 3 days in a week. And the face mask is now mandated for anybody in public space. So if you are caught without a face mask, you'll be charged to a mobile court. So that is one of the enforcements taking place. And then you are not to be more than, give or take, 20 people or 50 people, depending on the state, in a state. So church services are restricted, mosques are restricted, and any gathering such as burials and maybe functions are totally eliminated from the psyche of everybody now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Donnie, for writing in the chat.
It's so helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Babajide-san wrote a comment and he asked a question for Japanese speakers. He is asking about monkeys. お猿さんですね。お猿さんがウイルスのキャリアになってるんじゃないかと。で、それについて、どのような調べる措置が取られてるでしょうかっていう質問なんですが、日本ではあんまりこのお猿さんの話聞いたことないんだけど、何か中島さん何かご存知のことあるでしょうか。
Sorry, I don't know such discussion in Japan. I don't know. Monkeys.
we haven't heard about.
一緒に風呂に入らないように注意してます。
No, maybe no hot spring, no share with the monkeys. But,
Monkeys, yeah.
We haven't had any information on
Yeah.
Japanese monkeys.
はい、古瀬さん、he will ask the researcher for monkeys.
I see. Yeah.
Thank you very much. はい。
Sorry, just one news line. I saw that the cat and the dogs also have an infection to coronavirus. So maybe some we have to take care about treatment of cats or dogs.
Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
Okay.
そろそろ時間
Yes, that's right.
ですかね。はい。
Yes. Yeah. I think we have to move on to next timeline. Well, this
Yukako-san,
yes.
we just hear from Jo Hopkins or one of her colleagues at Parks Victoria in Australia. They have been able to manage the COVID-19 pandemic much better than most of us. And so I'm wondering, are the parks in Parks Victoria, which is one of the 7 states of Australia, open? Do they have restrictions? Are they wearing masks, the staff or visitors? Are they taking temperature of visitors, etc.? So if Joe or one of your colleagues can speak to that from Parks Victoria, I think we'd all appreciate hearing from you.
Sure.
Thank you, Rudy, and thanks to everybody for allowing the Parks Victoria gate crashes at the last minute. We've really appreciated being part of the discussion, so thank you. Look, we have managed the COVID pandemic quite well in Australia. It does help we're an island. And the cases overall compared to some other countries is really good. So we have been in lockdown, in isolation for about the last 8 to 9 weeks, and with many of the same restrictions. We have 4 reasons, and only recently a 5th has been added, that we can leave our house, which is to care for family, to go shopping, to attend a medical appointment, or to exercise. And that's probably one of the main differences that I've noticed in Australia compared to other countries, that people are allowed to be outside. Very early on, it was restricted to close to your home, but a lot of our parks are still open. Having said that, several of our parks are closed, and the basis for which parks were closed was, or is, still really around personal and safety for visitors. So where there are large groups of people can gather, such as campgrounds, or where there are shared facilities, or where certain attractions attract a lot of people, those sites have been closed. And we are now starting to work on reopening plans and one thing's very clear after listening to the discussion over the last hour and a half, is that we are facing very similar issues and challenges and problems and opportunities as all of you. At this stage, masks for the public and people going outside and certainly to parks is not mandatory. It is a personal choice. I'm not sure whether that will change. I know that there is an increasing concern amongst people in Victoria, at least, with the relaxing of restrictions and being able to move around a little bit more, that public transport will be an issue. And so that in a purely COVID sense is an issue for people. But in terms of our parks, let me just say, one of the the wonderful things that I've noticed in this time is the amount of people using parks. I have never seen so many people, most of them very practicing social, well, actually, I like to call it physical distancing. It's not really about keeping a social distance. We certainly know that people's mental health and well-being is so adversely affected by being alone. So people outside are mostly practicing physical distancing when they're in the parks and enjoying the sunshine, or in today's case, the pouring rain. And so I think that is an incredible opportunity for us as park and protected area managers, that we can really capitalise on the fact that more people than ever understand what the importance of having nature in their lives means. And those who have not been able to access nature and parks, even local parks, during isolation measures, have probably come to the same conclusion. So there is an opportunity for us to really activate our local communities and our local visitors and tourism to really demonstrate how vital nature and parks is to keeping people healthy. And I really hope we can turn that into an opportunity. And the more the park and protected area community globally get behind that and put pressure on governments and business to reinvest in environment and park activities, I think that can only be a wonderful outcome from this pretty difficult time that the whole world's going through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. So now, there's so limited of time for this webinar, and our next session will be kind of an idea fresh type of time. That this is the start for all of us to cooperate and share information among different countries. So would you write down on by the chat function that what would you like to see, or what would you like to have for another cooperation, or meetings, or whatever you think of. Rudy, am I explaining right?
Yeah, no, yeah, you're good. I
Okay.
just typing. I'd like to see inclusion of natural resource staff. It was something that I overlooked with all our questions about all of us want to be outside. And Joe, we're not as strict about folks in the US. I go out to our garden, as you might see from my Facebook page, every damn day. Been playing tennis for the past 2 weeks. So everybody wants to get outside, whether it's your local park or garden. But these great questions about natural resources and how we have programs or not, for a future webinar, we would definitely want to make sure that we have some colleagues from our natural resources side, as well as everybody else, and maybe from our visitor and resource protection branch too.
Okay.
And Tom just wrote examples of successful practices to engage visitors safely. But still, we really are interested in what everybody else is doing. We're all, for the first time in anybody's life, in the same boat across the entire globe. So what you're doing in Thailand, in Nigeria, in Australia, in China, we have a few colleagues from across China on the call as well. It's all uncharted territory for all of us. So we are all going to be stumbling forward together on this.
For Japanese, please write down in Japanese. 日本語で大丈夫ですので、チャット書ける方書いてください。Todd and Tom and Todd left a message for the chat. Yeah, interpretation international workshop between field staff. That's a good idea.
I just wanted to make a quick comment on Kawashima-san's presentation. I had a chance to participate in his workshop, and this was before this pandemic. And his style is so unique. And then now I'm making a connection, and then I think it's great that if we can facilitate workshop for all of us, so that we can have a dialogue internationally without seeing each other. 日本語で言いますと、川島さんのワークショップに参加できたんですけども、この、コロナの前だったんですよね。で、その頃はちょっと気づかなかったんですけど、今考えると、川島さんの方法っていうのは、コロナの時期にぴったりだと思うんで、これから川島さんに、このワークショップを、していただいて、みんなこの技術をつけると、国際的に、インタープリテーションが協力してできるんじゃないかと思います。
Thank you. ぜひやりましょう。ありがとう。
お願いします。
There's a lot of great stuff that people are writing.
Yes.
So I don't think we need to read them all now, but we can save the chats. Babajida and others had some great stuff. Think about wildlife as well as our own selves. Because in fact, wildlife, mistreatment of wildlife is how we're all now eating this way. Park Ranger program, that's right. Yes. So there's a lot of great stuff out there that we can share. We plan to have a debrief after this webinar amongst ourselves, among the team that organized this webinar. I know we didn't get around to our colleagues in the Korean Park Service, and you guys also got control or got the COVID-19 situation under control faster than most people. So we'd like to hear from you guys too. So we have a Facebook page for the NPS International Program, and please feel free to find us, and I'll put a link on here. But please share with us what you're going through. Please write to us questions or the new innovative approaches that you're adapting, because that will be a big help to us, and we'd love to share it with everybody else.
Yeah, as you know, you can save your chat of this webinar, so you can, because everybody wrote very quickly and maybe missed some part, and so please check later about our chat. Okay. And I would like to see the connection between the participants from this webinar. So please write an email or message to Rudy or me, and we can connect you and other people, you know, from this webinar participants.
One of my colleagues covers covers Africa for us, and he's been doing weekly webinars with colleagues at Sandpark, South Africa National Parks, using the U.S. Embassy as a host. Not that we need that, we didn't for this, but so we're open to doing anything like this. We have colleagues listening in who are from our Western Hemisphere coordinator for the National Park Service International Office, John Putnam. Hi, John. And you know, we've all had to cancel seminars, study tours, visits between our colleagues and ourselves. And this is our life for the foreseeable future, for at least the next several months. So new topics, if you hear something that we do, Night Skies, Natural Sounds, they shared with the South Africans last week. We're happy to get our colleagues to talk about that with you guys. Or the Cultural Heritage, Cultural Resources programs. Not just at the battlefield sites, but the programs that are non-park specific as well. We're happy to share with that with you. Lots of great comments. Thanks, Joe, for Park Victoria's website. So, Yukako-san, do we want to turn to Okuda-san and Tom-san for closing remarks?
Yes, please.
So
thank you for the comments, everybody.
Tom, can we have you give some closing remarks for the National Park Service of the U.S.?
Yes, absolutely. This is exactly what I expected. I've found throughout my 30 plus years doing this that people who do the work we do, people who protect parks, people who do interpretation and education, are some of the first people to respond in a crisis. We know as communicators, not just how important our parks and historic places and recreation are, but we know how important the communication of those things is to people. And even when we closed the gates to the parks, the people who jumped into action were the interpreters, jumping onto the websites, going onto social media, continuing the connection, creating new connections for people. And the things that we're doing now will have lasting implications. And those are the things that we think about as leaders, right? Are the things that we're doing to respond in the moment are going to have value for us for decades to come. And I think that we will find our interpretation is more accessible to more people now because we are looking harder and working harder at serving our deaf visitors and serving our seeing impaired visitors and older visitors, younger visitors, the digital age, all of that. We're expanding the toolkit that we use. And only by sharing, with our neighbors in our borders, as well as, our neighbors overseas, that's the only way we continue to grow, globally. And so I noticed the comment about international interpretation, and our different interpretive organizations are connected in some ways through our National Association for Interpretation, and we have a lot of people there who can support what we do. And so anyway, thank you all for stepping up. Thank you all for being willing and making this a priority, some 50 or 60 of us here, to talk about our craft, and with the goal of protecting our parks and serving visitors. There isn't a higher calling to me in public service, no matter where you live. And so thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for working with us. And here's to this being the first conversation of many to improve what we do and connect more people to our places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom さん。奥田さん、聞こえますか？奥田さん。突然ですけれども、振らせていただきたいんですが、一言コメントをお願いしたいと思います。
はい、聞こえますか？
はい、聞こえます。
はい。Thank you very much for this for giving me this opportunity to attend this very important webinar. And I think it's very, very informative for not only for me, but all the staffs who are attending this webinar from our ministry. Unfortunately, I'm not in charge of the park management at this moment, because I'm in charge of all the measures tackling the COVID-19 at the moment for all our ministry. And so I can contribute to the certain part of how we can more properly manage the park, or promote a certain visitor use to the parks. And maybe in a few weeks, we abolish the emergency declaration. And so gradually we have to open to the public, to all the public facilities to the visitors. So in that case, we need more precise management to prevent the infection of COVID-19. So in that case, since I think it's very, very important to communicate with all the good examples from all over the world, not only from the United States, but also from the other countries, including Thailand or Korea or South Africa or other countries, because there are so many different situations in each countries, but also in each parks, even in Japan. So I think the such kind of communication is very important. And so I think this kind of webinar is a good opportunity to strengthen our cooperation and strengthen or promote our exchange of information, which is very effective to make the measures more better. And I think in case we can strengthen our correlations through this kind of situation, I think that leads the more the good relations in the future, which is not only the issues tackling the COVID-19. Again, I would like to express my sincere thanks all the organizers of this webinar, all the staffs from the Interpretation Association of Japan and also the National Park Services. And I hope that we can continue this kind of communication in the coming few months. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Okuda-san. He's a Deputy Director General, and I just really appreciate Ministry of Environment Corporation for this webinar. Thank you very much. And Furuse-san, Koji, could you make a last remark from AIJ?
Thank you very much. Please let me speech in Japanese. Please translate, Yukiko-san or Todo-san. 皆さんの素晴らしいね、いろいろな報告がとても参考になって、すごくそれが良かったと思います。でそれ以上に、こうやって大勢、たくさんの国の人が一緒に集えたっていうことは、ある意味この COVID-19 の状況だからこそできたことなのかなと思っています。
Todd, would you like to translate? Or I will.
Oh, okay, got it. I'm sorry.
Great. Yes, please. Please.
Yes. So, Koji said, thanks very much for your contributions, and thanks for being here. And unfortunately, we have this situation, but because of this, you can unite. Please go on.
はい。なので、今、奥田さんのコメントにはありましたけども、グッドプラクティスをね、交換するようなインタープリターの集まりがまたぜひやりたいなってすごく強く思っています。
So, I'm hoping that we have opportunities. We want to continue cooperating and like to have opportunities to exchange our knowledge, the experiences.
またNPC、今回お世話になった NPS の皆さんにも力をお貸しいただければというふうに考えております。今日はどうもありがとうございました。
I'm hoping that you continue supporting us, NPS folks, and then also international colleagues. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Furuse-san. This webinar we recorded, and actually we will have a big interpreters forum this weekend, this coming weekend. And so we are going to report about this webinar to maybe hundreds of people in Japan. So I want to let you know that we're going to share this information to more than these participants. Okay, so why don't we take a picture together and okay, and after the picture, we're gonna finish this meeting, this webinar. All right. If you can turn on the video as many as possible. Only so many people here, so just one by one screen to different page to different page. Okay. So first page, Furuse-san, can you do that, or Nishimura-san? Can you take a picture?
Yeah.
All right.
First
okay.
page.
Okay, everybody, first page. Smile.
Good. And second
it?
page.
Okay, the second page. Great. Okay, smile second page. Finished?
Okay.
Great.
Third page, please.
Third page. Okay, everybody smile, please. Thank you. Did you finish? Nishimura-san or Koji-san?
Finish.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Well, we are afraid that we couldn't talk to each other, like 60 people, but this is just a start for us for this opportunity, the continuing opportunities. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar. So see you maybe soon. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
See you next